Timbuktu, 2014 film made in Mauritania. It's a really interesting snapshot of the lives of ordinary people who find themselves under the heel of the Islamic extremists, taking over jurisdiction and imposing the Sharia law on the people on territories that they happen to occupy. The film does not have a traditional singular narrative structure. Instead, it shows us glimpses of the lives of multiple characters within this community. We have a cowherder and his family, and he gets into this neighborly argument with a fisherman over a dead cow. We have this group of young people who enjoy music, who like to sing songs. We have an old imam who tries to reason with the extremists and kind of safeguard his people from their interpretations of Allah's law, and several other people as well. And because of the way these stories are presented, you really feel as if you're watching a documentary film, as if a camera crew just happened to walk among all these people, all these real people, for a couple of days. A lot of the subject matter that the film covers, that the movie tries to tackle, is also not said outright, but rather implied. For example, the characters don't really introduce themselves through dialogue so much as through their actions. And by observing what they do, how they behave, we get the idea of who they are as people, which is it's always something I appreciate in movies. I think it is not an easy feat to try and successfully pull off. I also really appreciated how the movie is a really very strong critique of religious extremism without necessarily being a critique of religion itself. It makes it very clear that the problem is always imposing your religious views on other people, often by force, often concerning ways that do not have anything to do with them, with their own belief systems, and also in ways that end up hurting them, of course. And there are instances of violence and senseless death in the film, but what struck me even more were the smaller absurdities, the everyday things, like the total ban on cigarettes and the fact that one of the terrorists themselves is actually a smoker himself and then he tries to hide it from the others. Or the fact that music is banned completely as well for whatever reason, which also leads to an interesting scene where this patrol investigates, music coming out of a building, and then they realize those are actually religious songs being sung, praise to Allah and the Prophet, and so they don't have any idea what to do. They end up, pulling out a cell phone, calling their leader to ask, should we stop these people or allow them to continue? This extremist insistence on removing things from life also touches on the visual side. We see especially women who try to kind of oppose this religious rule. We see the contrast because they're wearing extremely colorful, beautiful dresses, whereas the other ones caught under the thumb of these men are forced to wear exclusively dark colors and cover their entire bodies and faces and so on. And again, through it all, the movie doesn't necessarily, at least I thought so, it doesn't necessarily say you cannot rid yourself of these things if your beliefs tell you to, although it does seem pretty absurd and senseless. But it makes it crystal clear that pushing this stuff onto other people is just insane. And I think, the movie is clearly about Islam, but I do think you can extrapolate this to other major religions as well. One more point that I found quite interesting is the portrayal of these Islamic terrorists. They proclaim themselves to be freedom fighters, leading this jihad against the West. But all they really seem to do is just fuck around all day and just be a dick to all the people in their own town. There is a sense of mundane indifference that you get from them, that it's not like they have this burning cause inside them that they have to fight for, but rather they just use bullshit arguments that are convenient to impose their rule upon others. And you can see that they're also not this well-oiled machine, quite the opposite. In some cases, they even have trouble communicating amongst themselves because some of them speak Arabic, others French, others English. There are individual moments where all these interactions, as much as they still have serious and scary implications, they do become quite ridiculous when these people can't even properly talk to each other. I really think it's a very good movie, seemingly very simple and with an underdeveloped story, but I think it knows what it's doing. By being more of a snapshot of a specific society during specific times, it explores some really interesting themes and offers a lot of things to unpack, while also not being super obvious and in your face about its issues, which I think would have been an easy trap to fall into. So, yeah, even if you're more of a casual movie fan, I would still recommend to give this one a go. It's quite non standard, but in a definitely good way.